What are the 7 stages of wealth? In today's video, I'm going to walk you through the 7 main stages that you go through as you build your wealth throughout your life. So let's break this down and look at each one. And I've put together a visual for you to kind of help and show you how this all works. And so if you look at it, I'll put it up here on screen. And it's basically, I like to think about this as a staircase where you progress from one stage to the next in your financial journey. So let's have a look at the 7 stages of wealth. So number 1 is financial dependence. So this is the stage where obviously you're depending on others for financial support. You're probably a child in your parents' home or still living in your parents' home while you're attending school, while you're going to college, things like that. So that's the first stage, is financial dependence. We all start there, and so that is stage 1. Then step 2 is financial solvency. So at financial solvency, you have enough income coming in from maybe your first job out of school, your first job out of college, where you can meet all your basic living expenses without assistance from your family anymore. This means being current on all your bills and your debt payments and not relying on outside help from family and friends like we talked about. And if you do have debt, it's quite manageable and you're working your way towards being debt-free. And in the beginning of our financial lives, often debt is a tool that we just end up having to leverage more to be able to move forward in our journey. You think about how many people these days can afford to pay cash for houses anymore with the home prices the way they are. Even trying to pay cash for cars can be quite difficult if you're just getting started. And so these sorts of things like mortgages, car loans, even student debt, if you are taking out student loans to get a career that will help you level up your money and level up your professional skills, you're probably carrying some debt for that. So that's kind of that stage with financial solvency of step 2. Then step 3 is financial stability. So by now you have an emergency fund set up of anywhere from 3 to 6 months of living expenses to kind of help you weather any financial hardships that you might come across. You can pay cash for most purchases, still probably not your house, but you might be able to buy a decent used car, for example, with cash if you chose to do that. So you're not quite as heavily reliant on debt, and you're not running up your credit card bills month to month. So you're able to meet your expenses without having to lean on debt as much as you did during stage 2. So if you do have debt, it's probably just your mortgage, or maybe you're still paying off a car loan on a reliable but non-luxury vehicle. Your emergency fund, like we talked about, helps buffer you against unexpected expenses, so you don't have to go taking out loans in order to deal with those. And you're starting to set up multiple passive income streams, such as side gigs, investments, and perhaps even real estate holdings if you get into real estate investing, things like that. Anything that's bringing in relatively passive income. There's no such thing as passive income, right? But just something where you're creating a product and then selling it on Amazon. Maybe you've got a real estate property that you purchase and then rent out that then's turning around and bringing money back in. So you're starting to set up those passive income streams. And this is really important. The sooner in your financial journey you can set up passive income streams, the better, or relatively passive, so that you have income coming in from multiple sources beyond just your day job and your paycheck. Number 4, and stage 4 here on the staircase, is being debt-free. So when you reach this stage, you're finally free from all of your debt, which is a really great feeling, including credit cards, student loans, possibly even your mortgage. So mostly debt-free at this stage. And even if you still have a mortgage, you're being sure to make principal-only mortgage payments each and every month, which that just helps cut down the amount of interest that you have to pay over the life of that mortgage, and helps you pay off your mortgage faster and not spend so much servicing the interest on the mortgage, which is what most of the payments go to. It's not actually towards the mortgage itself, but it's all the interest. And especially these days with how much mortgage interest rates have gone up to, it's very important to keep on top of that as well with those principal-only payments. And then as well, being debt-free, you're making a commitment to remaining debt-free. So you have most of your debt paid off, you're working towards getting your mortgage paid off, and then you're making a commitment to stay debt-free, of course, barring some kind of huge emergency situation where you don't have any other options, but you're not going to go out and just continue to upscale your life with debt anymore. You're not leaning on debt as a crutch just to keep up with the Joneses, for example. And then fifth on our stairway here is financial security. So achieving financial security means having enough investment savings or passive income streams to cover your living expenses. At this stage, you are 100% debt-free, including your mortgage. So congratulations. You must still work most likely, but you can live relatively comfortably because of all the money coming in off of your other income streams, side gigs, products you sell. Perhaps you have a YouTube channel or something you're doing with a social media account that's bringing in extra income, whatever it looks like for you in your situation. And importantly, when you hit financial security, money isn't a big worry anymore. Often in those other steps on this staircase, money can be a relatively big worry that's just either right in the front of your mind or in the back of your mind, but you end up feeling quite anxious about money sometimes throughout those stages where you're getting to the point where you have financial security, where you have income coming in, not just from your job, but from multiple different sources. So if something happens to your job, for example, you've got money coming into your household to cover expenses from a variety of other sources. Diversification is king, so don't forget that. Repeat with me, diversification of your financial income streams is king. So that is very, very important to remember. That's what gets you towards this fifth step in your wealth building journey. You also have enough coming in from these different income streams that you can afford to pay cash for most purchases. So rather than having to take out debt for cars, take out loans for cars, you're now able to pay cash for cars. You're able to pay cash for vacations. You have different options that way that you would have maybe had to do at least some of it, leveraging some loans. Now you can pay cash for most things because perhaps you're still working, so you've got income coming in off your day job, and then you've got a lot coming in off of your other income streams as well each and every month. So you are in a great place there. And a lot of people, that's the stage then where they start to ponder retirement. Now, as one of my subscribers pointed out a couple of weeks ago on another video, retirement is going to look very different for my generation than it did for, say, my grandparents' generation. So it's definitely a different situation than it used to be. So who knows if we'll ever be able to completely, fully retire. But when people have reached financial security, that's often the point where they start to ponder if they want to at least go to working part-time relatively soon. The sixth step in your stages of wealth is financial independence. So as you can imagine, at this stage, you're definitely able to retire if you want to fully, or go work at something that you've always wanted to work at that maybe doesn't pay as well, but you've always wanted to pursue something like this. So your investments and other sources of passive income are generating income that's greater than your living expenses. And so you can afford to do without your paycheck should you choose. You can then live very comfortably. We're not talking lavishly, we're not talking luxuriously, but you are completely financially independent from needing even a paycheck from an employer, say. You have zero debt and you plan to remain debt-free for the rest of your life. And again, barring a major emergency, right? Because sometimes these things happen. This is the stage that people then are often looking at fully retiring or partially retiring when they hit this point. And very comfortably at that point. They're not too worried about it. Rather than in financial security, they might still be working part-time. By the time they hit financial independence, they feel pretty comfortable, perhaps being able to fully retire, should they choose. Now, think about it too. Having meaningful work is really an important part of what makes us tick as humans. And so sometimes I've even seen retirement advice that says, don't retire and go golf or, retire to the beach. Go do another type of job that you've always wanted to do. Go pursue a hobby. Go do something that makes you excited to get out of bed in the morning. But it's just always a very individual decision when it's a somewhat financial decision of when you can afford to retire. And then also, do you want to retire or do you want to just shift industries and work in a different industry that you've always wanted to? At this point, though, in financial independence, you have lots of options. The passive income streams and investments that you have are providing a steady inflow of cash, so you don't need that paycheck from your day job that you had. And you might transition to working part-time instead of full-time, like we talked about, maybe be a career changer at that point. You may have the option then to travel more, spend more time with family, do the things that are meaningful to you that you've always wanted to do. So at this point, you have many options. You're, again, not necessarily going to be living super lavishly or luxuriously, but you are very well equipped to be able to retire either part-time or full-time and still live very comfortably. And then the seventh step in the stages of wealth here at the top is what I like to call abundant wealth. So here is the stage where you've gone beyond financial independence to the point where you have so much money coming in from all of these different income streams that you've established over the course of your life, your investments, your businesses that you own, your real estate investments that you own, or maybe you invest in real estate syndicates, for example. The list goes on and on of ways you can generate passive income or passive-ish income. But this way, you've spent your life working to this point where you have a lot of money coming in from these different assets that you've been building along your journey as you've kind of been working your way up this staircase. So this lets you have significant excess wealth that lets you live luxuriously. And this is the point where you are then able to go on those really incredible vacations that maybe you always wanted to. A lot of people at this point will buy yachts, they'll buy luxury vehicles. This is the point where, by the way, where it's appropriate to do that when you have so much excess money and money's not a worry, you're all set for retirement, and you have so much money that it's just like there's just abundant amounts of resources in your life. And so what is interesting is a lot of times you'll see people trying to live like they're at the abundant wealth stage when they're absolutely not. And unfortunately, they're using debt to make it look like they're living at the abundant wealth stage, when in reality, they probably have no extra discretionary income whatsoever, and everything's going towards debt servicing to keep up this sort of facade that they are living at the abundant wealth stage. So you do not want to do this. You want to work your way up the staircase, but when you do achieve abundant wealth, congratulations, that's the time to really be able to enjoy your money. It's also the time to think about, again, you don't have to work unless you want to, but again, maybe don't consider other ways of work that you would enjoy, other types of work that you would enjoy that would be meaningful to you, so you're not just retiring and then suddenly having a very quiet, empty life with not much going on. You still want to be able to make meaningful contributions to the people around you and to society, obviously. But you can enjoy yourself at this point as well, too, which is absolutely phenomenal. And you have a lot of money at your disposal. It's also a good time when a lot of people will start to consider making large charitable donations. You see a lot of millionaires and billionaires as they've reached this stage and they're getting on in life. They'll start to set up trusts for their kids and their grandchildren for education and things like this. They'll start to make large charitable donations to charities and causes that they care about. So I think it's probably about 1% of the population here in the US that ever reaches the abundant wealth stage. So remember, you do not want to be living like you're at the abundant wealth stage unless you truly are at the abundant wealth stage. Don't use debt to try to live that kind of luxury lifestyle. I think there's a lot of pressure from social media, unfortunately, to live that luxury lifestyle, right? Way before we have any business doing it using debt. So when you are in the abundant wealth stage there, you've climbed that staircase, you've learned all these different lessons about how to manage your money, how to build your wealth, how to grow your wealth. This is the time to really enjoy it. And again, look and see, how can I use all this money that I've accumulated over the course of my life to help other people and to leave this sort of legacy with my finances? We all leave a legacy. Whether or not we achieve abundant wealth or not, we all leave an incredible legacy. However, what we're talking about here is your financial legacy in the terms of trust, in the terms of grants and donations, things like that, that can really continue to make the world a better place long after you're gone that way with this money that you've accumulated over the course of your life. So those are some of the options that people that reach the abundant wealth stage have. So just to recap, I just want to put this chart or my little graphic back up on the screen again. So we've got that first stage of financial dependence, then we've got financial solvency, financial stability, being debt-free, financial security, financial independence, and then abundant wealth. Now, what's really interesting is I think a lot of us kind of would love one morning to just sort of wake up and suddenly be at the abundant wealth stage. And I think a lot of us kind of have in our back of our minds, whether or not you play the lottery, for example, or stand to inherit a fortune from a relative, which I think is kind of a bygone thing. I personally have never heard of anyone that I know that that's happened to, but if it happens to you, that's great. But it can be really something where I think a lot of times we think, oh, wouldn't it be nice to suddenly one day wake up and have millions of dollars in my bank account, for example, and all my problems would go away and I would not have to worry about money anymore. Well, what's really interesting about this is there is a point to walking up this staircase over the course of our lives and learning money management skills, learning how to gradually build your wealth and gradually accumulating more and more, and learning how to manage that, learning how to hire the teams to help you manage it, whether it's investment advisors, financial advisors, things like this, tax people, for example, tax professionals, because there are people who you will read about in the news who, for example, win the lottery or have a huge lawsuit settlement that they receive, or they do inherit a huge fortune, for example, kind of out of the blue. And this is not necessarily a good thing, because they might have been, step 2, 3, somewhere in here, and all of a sudden they jump right to step 7. This is called sudden wealth syndrome. There's actually a word for this, sudden wealth syndrome. And it's a very interesting situation that people find themselves in. And so it refers to the stress, emotional turmoil, and psychological challenges that can occur when someone suddenly becomes extremely wealthy. So it's often something where you're better off learning how to manage your money wisely, a little bit at a time, growing it a little bit at a time, rather than jumping all the way to the top. Because you would think, oh, well, what could be stressful about suddenly waking up and having millions of dollars in my bank account? But if you're not used to owning that much money, if you're not used to being wealthy, if you're not used to money management and you don't have a lot of financial skills, a lot of times what people can have is they can have a lot of stress, because it kind of creates an identity crisis for them. If, for example, they've never had much money and all of a sudden they have all this money, they can end up doing a lot of impulse buying, for example, just because they've got the money to buy stuff with. And so suddenly they're just going on a huge shopping spree. So there are teams of people, actually, which is interesting. There's professionals who specialize in sudden wealth. There's financial advisors, for example, who specialize in sudden wealth. So if you do ever find yourself suddenly coming into a lot of money, never fear, because there's resources to help you with that. But it's just very interesting how hopping straight from not having very much money to having a lot of money can actually come with its own stressors and its own challenges. Even things like sometimes your friendships might be affected by it, or relationships might be affected by it, because maybe suddenly, people weren't used to having you be rich and you were just like them, and all of a sudden you're rich, and that can create kind of divides and rifts in your relationships. So money is a tool. It's neither good nor bad. It's just a tool. And the more that you can learn to use it responsibly over time, then as you grow your fortune, as you grow your wealth and walk up the staircase, the more you'll be equipped at the top to be able to deal with your money in a responsible way, in a wise way, in a way that benefits both yourself and those around you, your community, and causes that you care about. So that's the 7 stages of wealth. Let me know in the comments kind of what your thoughts are on this as well, because this is just such a fun concept to kind of explore and learn more about. And I always really appreciate your comments. Thank you so much. And I will see you again soon in my next video.